Sunday sunlight spilled through stained glass, laying colored patterns across polished pews and quietly expensive perfumes. When Amara Okonkwo stepped in beside her father, the murmurs tilted toward wonder. Her emerald Ankara gown hugged a pronounced figure-8 silhouette, tastefully cut. The fabric's gold motifs caught the light as she moved. Diamond studs, a slim bracelet, and calm poise. Rich, yes, but never loud. Chief Okonkwo greeted elders with the warmth of a man who remembered names and needs. Hands reached toward Amara, ushers, aunties, young men with two bright smiles. She answered each hello with a nod that felt like gratitude and distance at once. Beauty had become its own ministry. She served it dutifully. The choir swelled. From the side aisle, David slipped into view. White shirt, navy trousers, leather sandals, helping an elderly woman to a seat, steadying a restless fan, then opening a hymnal for a boy too shy to ask. He did not hover near Amara, did not wave for notice. When their eyes met across a low hum of worship, his smile arrived small and certain, like truth. Suitors clustered after the first prayer. Wristwatches heavy, agbadas bright, compliments rehearsed. One presented a bouquet, another whispered about shared destiny. Amara thanked them, heart elsewhere. During the reading, her fingers traced the edge of her Bible, grounding herself in the margins where she had once written, "Let what is real endure." She sang the chorus softly, voice a quiet thread under the choir's silk. Chief Okonkwo leaned close as the sermon closed. "You're well?" he asked. She nodded. He knew her answers. He also knew the weight behind them. The benediction fell like a gentle seal. After service, the aisle became a corridor of intentions. Men queued with careful grins, speaking of business opportunities, charity projects, futures that somehow centered on her father's name. Amara smiled, accepted, released. Rhythm learned, rhythm endured. David waited until the tide thinned. No gift in hand, no angle rehearsed. "How was worship?" he asked. "Full," she said, surprised by the honesty that reached her mouth. "Full of music, full of watching eyes, full of something missing." He noticed the crease at her brow but did not press. "See you next week," he said, as if next week were simple. Outside, the sun was bright on the steps. Amara's gown shifted around her hips like a green river, elegance carrying exhaustion under its sheen. She breathed in the city, in the noise, in the prayers still hanging in stained glass, and wondered what kind of love could stand when the light dimmed. The chandelier in Chief Okonkwo's sitting room bathed everything in amber. The polished mahogany table, framed photographs of ancestors in stiff poses, the velvet chairs that had felt the weight of countless visitors. But this evening, it was just father and daughter, two shadows against the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Amara sat across from him, her burgundy lace gown hugging curves she no longer noticed, a carefully tied gilet crowning her head. She looked like every inch of the heiress, yet her fingers drummed restlessly against her Bible. She had worn diamonds to church, but what clung to her most was fatigue. Her father's gaze was steady, softened by years of knowing when silence had to be broken. "My daughter," he began, "the time is drawing near. You are admired by many, but admiration is not love. A man's heart must be proven." Amara lifted her eyes, the weight in them heavier than her gold earrings. "Papa, every week they come with flowers, with plans, with promises. They smile for you, but when I look deeper, I see hunger. Not for me, never for me, but for what our name carries. How do I separate flattery from truth?" Chief Okonkwo leaned back, the red of his senator caftan rich in the lamplight. "Even Solomon asked for wisdom above riches. You must test hearts, Amara. Love is revealed under trial, not comfort." Her breath caught, the edges of her composure loosening. "And if no one stays?" "Then you will know," he said firmly. "Better solitude with peace than a crowded table with deception." His hand reached across, warm on hers. "I would rather you walk slowly into love than run into chains." She let the silence stretch, eyes drifting toward the window where Lagos street lamps blinked. The night outside was noisy, but in here it felt like destiny was narrowing. A daring thought flickered, then settled. She straightened, voice low but steady. What if they saw me without the jewels, without the lace? What if they thought I had broken? Her father's brow arched, curiosity sharpening. You mean disguise? Yes, she whispered. If I were no longer the heiress, if I appeared like nothing, would anyone stay? For a long moment, the fan's whir was the only sound. Then Chief Okonkwo's lips curved in a slow, knowing smile. You are your mother's daughter. She tested me too, though not so boldly. Perhaps this is the wisdom you seek. Amara exhaled, half fearful, half relieved. Then it is settled. He nodded once, decisive. We will see which man's love can stand when the crown is set aside. In that golden room, amid portraits of legacy, a new script was written, one that would strip glamour to its bones and test loyalty at its roots. Amara's heart pounded, not with romance, but with the terrifying hope that somewhere in the shifting crowd of suitors, one soul might remain. The morning sun was sharp on stained glass, but whispers carried sharper edges. Amara Okonkwo did not glide into church in emerald or burgundy. Instead, she stumbled. Her once silky hair hung loose, tangled as though she had fought the wind. A faded wrapper clung unevenly to her hips. A torn blouse slipped from one shoulder. Barefoot, she muttered beneath her breath, eyes darting as though unseen voices called her. Gasps rippled. Is that Amara? One woman hissed. The heiress. Another shook her head in pity. Suitors who once leaned forward now shrank back, adjusting cufflinks nervously. Chief Okonkwo walked beside her, face stern but composed, as if carrying a private grief. When the pastor asked, he bowed his head solemnly. Pray for her. Something has attacked. Inside, Amara did not last the service. Halfway through the hymns, she bolted outside, wrapper flapping. Congregants craned their necks, whispering about curses, enemies, hidden sins. At the church gate, she sat heavily on the dusty pavement, hugging her knees, muttering fragments of nonsense like a beggar abandoned to madness. The line of suitors broke apart. Some lingered only long enough to shake Chief Okonkwo's hand with forced sympathy before slipping away. Others smirked quietly. Better to invest elsewhere. Who marries into madness? But one figure crossed the courtyard without hesitation. David, in a clean gray shirt and dark trousers, slowed his steps, ignoring the snickers. He crouched beside her. Amara? He said softly. No answer, only muttering. He unscrewed the cap of his water bottle, setting it before her. You're thirsty? Take. A moment passed. Then she grabbed it, drinking greedily, letting the drops spill down her chin. He handed her a clean handkerchief. Wipe your face, he whispered. His own knees gathered dust as he sat down beside her, unbothered by the stares. From a distance, laughter rose. David the fool, one suitor sneered. Even madness has caught him. But David's jaw tightened only briefly. His eyes remained steady on the woman he had always seen as more than silk and lace. When the service ended, streams of well-dressed members walked past, some avoiding eye contact, others shaking heads in pity. Amara rocked gently, playing her part with aching precision. Through the corner of her eye, she saw David, still seated, shoulders squared, gaze unshaken. Beneath the disguise, her heart trembled. Already the crowd was thinning, but one man had not moved. One man had not left. And though she dared not smile, a spark of warmth pushed against the dust in her throat. The first Sunday was enough to scatter the boldest admirers. Yet in the shadow of whispers, Amara felt the weight of her gamble and the faint beginning of an answer. The second Sunday dawned hotter, the kind of Lagos morning where the air itself pressed down like judgment. By the time Amara arrived at church, barefoot and disheveled once more, the whispers had turned into certainty. She's gone mad, a woman sighed. A shame after all her beauty, another added. Amara's oversized blouse, hanging crooked, swallowed the curves that once drew every gaze. A wrapper frayed at the hem dragged against the ground. Her hair, uncombed and wild, framed a face smudged with dust. She let out broken laughter at random moments, clutching at nothing. In the pews, suitors shifted uneasily. Some had not returned at all. Those who remained sat stiff, refusing to look her way. Where once they jostled to hand her hymnals, now they kept a cautious distance, as if madness might rub off like oil. Chief Okonkwo, regal in a white senator caftan, bowed his head during prayer, carrying the weight of their plan with grave dignity. He gave no explanation beyond, "Pray for my daughter." Mid-sermon, Amara rose suddenly, muttering, and staggered outside. The sunlit gate was harsh, the dust bright underfoot. She sank to the ground, knees pulled up, rocking as though she had lost her anchor. This time no one followed, except David. In his simple blue-checked shirt, sleeves rolled against the heat, he walked calmly into the space that everyone else avoided. Without a word, he lowered himself beside her on the dusty pavement. The clean fabric of his trousers stained instantly, but he did not shift away. "Hungry?" he asked gently. She only stared past him, eyes unfocused. He unwrapped a small loaf of bread from his bag, placed it on her lap. "Eat, at least eat." Passers-by chuckled cruelly. One former admirer smirked loudly. "David wants to marry a madwoman. Perfect match." Laughter rippled. David's face tightened, but he did not answer. Instead, he bowed his head and prayed quietly, lips moving with a steadiness Amara could almost feel in her bones. Through lowered lashes, Amara watched. Every gesture, his stillness, his silence in the face of ridicule, cut deeper than any grand gift she had ever received. Suitors who once promised forever had vanished in less than 2 weeks. But here was David, his presence unshaken, his loyalty louder than words. As the congregation streamed past at service's end, many averted their gaze. Some crossed to the far side of the road, but Amara remained seated in dust, and David beside her, 2 figures set apart from the crowd. For Amara, the desertion of suitors was no longer theory. It was truth. The jewels had scattered, and only one stone remained, steady and unyielding. By the 3rd Sunday, the whispers had soured into ridicule. Some church members no longer prayed for Amara's healing. They gossiped instead. "A family cursed," muttered one man near the gate. "Wealth cannot protect from madness," a woman said, shaking her head as though pity excused cruelty. Amara entered in her worst disguise yet. A torn skirt clung loosely to her waist, her blouse misbuttoned, one sleeve dangling. She walked barefoot, muttering fragments of psalms twisted into nonsense, sometimes breaking into sharp laughter. Her hair was tangled and wild, shielding her eyes. To anyone watching, she looked less heiress, more beggar, abandoned by the roadside. The suitors had all but vanished. Those who still came to church kept their distance, whispering as though her presence were a contagion. Where once they carried gifts and promises, now they carried mockery. One even sneered loud enough for David to hear. "Imagine courting such a woman. Madness will breed madness." Chief Okonkwo, dignified in a dark agbada embroidered with gold, kept his face still. But his eyes burned with disappointment at the hypocrisy surrounding him. He said only to the pastor, "God is still God. His ways are higher." When the sermon ended, Amara bolted outside once more, stumbling into the windy courtyard where dust curled along the ground. She crouched near the gate, rocking, muttering, clutching the edges of her wrapper like someone afraid of shadows. The crowd streamed past, some smirking, some avoiding her entirely. David, however, was there again, this time in a checked blue shirt, trousers already marked with dust from kneeling last week. He walked without hesitation to her side. He knelt, lowering himself to the ground. "Amara," he whispered, his voice quiet but steady. "God sees you. He knows your pain." He folded his hands, bowed his head, and prayed aloud, not for show, but for her. His words were simple. "Lord, give her peace. Let her know she is not alone." Laughter rose behind him. "See him?" one man scoffed. "Praying for a mad woman, as if prayer can cure what God himself cursed." Yet David did not rise, did not answer. His voice stayed soft, steady, like a shield against their cruelty. From beneath her disheveled hair, Amara's eyes flickered toward him. The disguise hid her tears, but her heart clenched. Each week more suitors had vanished, but David's devotion had only deepened. He sat where the ground was hardest, endured the insults, and offered prayers not for himself, but for her. And in that moment, though she still wore rags and dust, Amara felt a quiet certainty settle. She had asked God for a sign of love that was true. The answer was already kneeling in the dirt beside her. The fourth Sunday broke with softer skies. A gentle harmattan breeze moved through the palms outside the church, as if creation itself wanted to hush the whispers that had filled the past weeks. When Amara entered, the congregation gasped. Gone were the rags, the tangled hair, the muttered fragments of nonsense. In their place stood the heiress once more, radiant in a soft pink fitted lace gown that hugged her hourglass figure with quiet dignity. A matching gel framed her glowing face, her silky black hair curled neatly beneath it. Gold earrings caught the light, and with each step her figure-8 silhouette returned like the unveiling of truth. She walked with composure, her Bible in hand, her eyes forward, but the pews buzzed with confusion. Was it healing, someone asked, or was she never mad at all? The suitors, those few who still lingered, exchanged awkward glances. None dared approach her. Throughout service, Amara kept her posture steady, but inside her heart beat fast. Today was not for the crowd. It was for one man. When the benediction ended and the aisles filled with departing footsteps, David rose hesitantly from his seat. His black suit, slightly wrinkled, looked almost too formal on him, but his crooked tie and nervous hands betrayed his humility. He crossed toward her, uncertain whether to bow, to smile, to simply fall silent. Amara! His voice trembled, caught between relief and disbelief. You're well? Her eyes softened, tears threatening to break through the poise. David, I was never lost. Not in the way they thought. He frowned slightly, searching her face. Then why? She drew a slow breath, courage gathering. I needed to know who would stay when the crown slipped, when beauty was hidden, when the world turned its face. You never left. Week after week, when others scattered, you remained. You gave me water. You gave me prayer. You gave me loyalty. Her voice faltered, then steadied. That loyalty means more than gold. David's throat tightened, his chest rising with the weight of unshed words. For years he had buried them, convinced her world was too high for his reach. But now, the veil was gone. I have always loved you, Amara, he whispered, the truth finally freed. Not your gowns, not your father's name, just you. Even in dust, even in silence, I saw you, and I could not walk away. For a heartbeat, the world blurred, suitors muttering in confusion, whispers swirling. But in that quiet space between them, all else faded. Amara's lips curved into the smallest, truest smile she had ever given. Then, David, you have seen me as I am, and I see you. They stood together, a simple conversation carrying the weight of destiny. No speeches, no applause, just two souls, at last uncovered. The courtyard behind the church was nearly empty, the late afternoon sun softening into gold. Birds flickered through the mango trees, their calls a quiet chorus as Amara and David stepped aside from the stream of congregants. The world seemed content to let them disappear into their own silence. Amara's ivory gown, tailored to perfection, clung with subtle grace to her figure. 8 curves, its lace shimmer catching the fading light. A delicate shawl rested against her shoulders, moving with each nervous breath. Her hair, swept into soft curls, framed a face that carried both vulnerability and resolve. David had loosened his tie, his black suit jacket draped over one arm, as if shedding the last barrier between them. His shirt clung to him in the warmth, sleeves rolled, the simple look making him seem both strong and open. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet held them, heavy but tender. Finally, Amara turned, her eyes steady though her fingers trembled. David, she said, voice low, all my life I've been surrounded by men who wanted my name, my father's wealth, my beauty. But when I stripped it all away, you stayed. You prayed when others mocked. You gave when others withheld. Do you know what that meant to me? David swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on hers. It meant everything to me just to be near you. I didn't care about the dust or the whispers. Amara. I cared only that you were not alone. Her lips quivered, a small laugh escaping through tears. And all this time, I thought you were only my friend. He shook his head slowly, truth catching in his throat. No, Amara, I have loved you quietly for years. Loved you when you walked in emerald and lace. Loved you still when you sat barefoot on the ground. I kept it hidden because I thought I was not enough, that an heiress could never belong with a man like me. The words broke the last restraint in her. She stepped closer, reaching for his hand. And yet it is you, David. The man who saw me when I was stripped of everything. You are the answer I didn't even know how to pray for. His hand closed around hers, steady, reverent. For a long moment they stood with the sun framing them, two hearts laid bare, their confessions weaving into the same song. In the hush of that courtyard, Amara and David found something no jewel, no title, no crowd could give. The beginning of a love tested in shadows and revealed in light. The courtyard of Chief Okonkwo's compound filled with soft music that Sunday evening, drums echoing faintly, neighbors stopping at the gates to peek in. It was not yet a wedding, only a gathering, but joy rippled through the air like incense. Amara descended the marble steps with elegance, her royal blue-fitted gown hugging her figure. 8 curves in every line, gold trim catching the lantern glow. Her hair flowed in polished waves down her back, a subtle crown in itself. She moved with serenity, each step declaring a woman who had tested the world and found her answer. Beside her walked David, clad in a white agbada, embroidered with navy designs, his posture tall, though his eyes remained humble. He was not draped in gold chains like the suitors who had once crowded the church pews. His dignity came from something deeper, steadier. The other men, those who had once boasted of winning the heiress, stood scattered at the edge of the courtyard. Their agbadas were still bright, their perfumes sharp, but now they were shadows. They whispered among themselves, faces tight with shame, watching Amara smile at David as though the rest of them did not exist. At the center, Chief Okonkwo rose from his carved wooden chair, coral beads heavy on his neck, his icy agu tunic glowing in the firelight. He lifted his staff gently. My people, God has answered. My daughter has found a man whose loyalty does not waver in dust or in dignity. May their union be blessed. Applause followed, but Amara hardly heard. She leaned close to David, her voice just for him. We don't need their cheers. What we have is enough. David looked at her, emotion thick in his eyes. Amara, I stayed because I could not imagine a world without you. Today, to stand by you openly feels like a victory I never dared dream. She touched his hand, squeezing gently. And for me, your staying was the proof I prayed for. Let others look, let them whisper. Their silence is our crown. The music rose, blending with laughter, but their steps remained quiet as they walked together toward the banquet table. 2 souls tested, revealed, and now sealed in simplicity. The suitors had sought spectacle, but Amara and David had won something far greater. A love proven in shadows, now shining without need of applause. And in that quiet victory, their story found its true ending.